Good afternoon and welcome back to Jeff and the Rabbi. Well, anti-Semitism, that's a big topic.
There it is again.
It seems not to go away. It's always there.
You'd think we talk about this every now and then. You think we have a hang-up with anti-Semitism or something like that,
Right, I've heard this one already. You keep talking about the same thing.
Why does that keep coming up?
But it seems to always be there. Now, I've talked about before my days in high school. We've already discussed that. I don't need to go back into that. I was thinking about anti-Semitism. You know what? I think some of my first anti-Semitic experiences might even happen in preschool. I remember back when I was a little kid, I was in preschool. There's someone I remember was one little foreign exchange student, I think from Kenya, Barry something or another. I don't remember his name. He came from Kenya. He was in her school, and that was my first experience with anti-Semitism. Every morning we had block period where you build things with blocks, and we built this big huge city. And there I am trying to just be myself, building my own little apartment blocks. But he said, no, that's my side of the city, and you couldn't do it. So this guy was yelling at me, Barry from Kenya, saying I couldn't build my blocks, have apartment houses on his side of the city. I'm thinking that's kind of crazy, I never really liked the guy. And number one, they were my blocks. I just want you to let you know that. But he still said I couldn't build my apartment houses on his side, which really bothered me. It was kind of strange, though. I remember it was in recess. We used to go out in the playground and play Army Men. He just wanted to blow everything up. So I never really liked him.
Not only were they his blocks, but you should be thankful that he wasn't sending you away to somewhere.
Right. I was actually very thankful for that. It kind of ended bad. I remember the guy ended up running for preschool class president, and I, of course, didn't vote for him because he wasn't my thing. The guy gets elected because about 68% of the Jewish kids voted for the guy. I said, thank God, one day I'm going to grow up and that'll never happen again. So it wasn't a good thing. But my fault for going to a midrash when I was a kid. But anyway, that was a bad thing. But thinking about the anti-Semitism, it's different than other kind of hatreds. There's always that, the Greeks hated the Cypriots, the so-and-so. And they get over it after a time. I remember when I was a kid, we used to tell Polish jokes when I was a kid. It was just it was in, and I guess because they were probably the most recent immigrants to come to America. The other day, I was with a group of 28, 29-year-old guys. We were all talking. They were telling jokes. I thought I was going to tell a joke, so I told a Polish joke. They laughed at the joke and they said, what does it have to do with him being Polish? They had no idea what a Polish joke was. I'm saying that was only a couple of years. We get over it. You have your things and get over it. But the same in the 1500s, those Jewish jokes they're telling, they're still telling today. They haven't changed. What's the difference?
I just said this to a 12th grade class. I said, who are the Polish jokes today? Every era has to have its group that it makes fun. We don't have one, I guess. I think that's a sad critique of a generation.
Yes, it is. They don't have their
the group that you can make fun of.
But they didn't even know what I was talking about. But again, you say a Jewish joke, I get that one.
Right.
It's still there. We don't go away as being hated by the people. Everybody else, they have their time and they move on. Not the Jews. Well, I don't understand that.
Right.
Is there something supernatural going on here, or what's the deal?
Right. And really, I think nowadays Israel, which is the focus of global anti-Semitism now, which in a certain way takes the heat off the individual Jews, but it's given the world something to focus on. If you really look at Israel, of course, everyone will say it's a horrible apartheid state, but I don't think that it really matches up when you align it with other states and other crimes and other things that people are doing. After all, it's a real tiny place to start with.
Right.
So if you're really looking for big time crimes and big time oppression and big time abuse of people and all that, there's so many other places to look. But yet the world seems to be really, really focused on Israel. It comes up all the time, and it's got all the figures and facts, more censure from the UN than any other nation, more, all this type of stuff.
But it's illogical. To me, I know maybe I'm a little biased here, it's illogical because there are so many bad things going on. As you just said, more censure in the UN when you got Syria over here killing, half its people, and you have what's going on in Iran, you have what's going on, what went on in Angola, what went on, everywhere in the world, and for some reason, Israel is still the most hated place in the world. There's got to be a reason that Jews aren't, really getting accepted into society here.
Right. Well, guess where my take comes from?
It can't be the Torah. I know that.
Man. Yeah, right. So there we go.
One trick pony. But
Once again, back to the Torah. And actually, so why are we talking about this? This happens to be the big origin of anti-Semitism week
right.
in the
Makes
Torah
sense.
reading. You know, for Jews, if they could designate like different weeks and different portions, this is the origin of anti-Semitism week in the Torah, National Origin of Anti-Semitism Week, because we got the two brothers are born, and they are twins, Esau and Jacob. We find them struggling even to get out of the womb.
Right.
They're already like tangling it up. Even before they come out, there's already a struggle inside the womb, and Rebecca goes to ask for some advice and counsel. She doesn't know what's going on. And according to the Midrash, she actually goes to ask her father-in-law Abraham. And Abraham, the wise Abraham, says, you've got two nationalities inside of you, and they're struggling. And they struggle in the womb, and the truth is they get out of the womb, and they're still struggling. And the struggle comes to a peak in this episode that we read about in this week's Torah portion. First of all, we see that the two of them have very different approaches to life. Jacob is a bookie type of tent dweller, and Esau's a man of the field and a hunter and all that stuff. Okay, but then it comes time for them to be blessed. And Isaac is going to give the blessings to the older son, Esau. All of a sudden, the mother counsels Jacob to get in, masquerade as Esau, receive the blessing. Before Esau gets it, then you'll get it. Okay, that doesn't sound so nice. It certainly sounds a little underhanded, but that's exactly what he does. He gets in there and he gets the blessing. Okay, now he's got the blessing. Esau comes in expecting to receive the blessing. Unbeknownst to him, Jacob already got the blessing.
Right.
He comes into his father Isaac and he says, here I am, ready for the blessing. Isaac says, what do you mean? I just gave the blessing to you. He says, no, that wasn't me. That must have been my rotten twin brother. So Isaac then says, first of all, realizing that he has been deceived, Isaac now has a choice. Isaac could revoke the blessing,
Right.
or he could stick with it, and he ratifies the blessing.
Right, which is a mystery in itself.
Right.
I think.
Gam baruch yehiyeh. Okay. He shall also be blessed. He says, I repeat, he shall also be blessed. Even the blessing I gave him, which he stole and all that stuff, I ratified. Okay. That is an interesting discussion in and of itself. But Esau then says, don't you have a blessing for me? And this is what Isaac blesses him. He says, you'll have from the wealth of the earth, but let me take a look at my copy of the Torah here.
Right.
Never go anywhere without one.
Right.
And then he says, Isaac, his father, answers and he says to him, behold, from the fat places of the earth will be your dwelling, and from the dew of the heavens above. You will live by your sword, and your brother you will serve. And it will be, when he comes down, you will throw off his yoke from on your neck. And then it goes on to say, the narrator says, and Esau hated Jacob for the blessing that his father had blessed him. Now, if you're a father and you're intending to have your two brothers live in peace, to figure out some mode of coexistence, what kind of a father gives his son a blessing, and he says, when he comes down, you'll throw off his yoke from on your neck. So then, obviously, one of them's gunning after the other one.
Right. Forever. Right.
And when one of them's up, he's got to drag the other one down. And when he's got him down, he's got to keep him down. And, of course, the other one's got to try to, bring him down. So he put him on a seesaw, but they never can, the two of them can never be equal. They can't coexist. They're constantly at odds with each other. And he says, Jacob is on your neck, but if he comes down, you can throw him off. Well, who doesn't want to throw him off?
That's true. So, yeah, that's interesting.
So it sounds to me like, sort of this is built-in anti-Semitism till forever. That the Jews are just going to have Esau there gunning for him forever. And to tell you the truth, I don't blame Esau.
Yeah, he
You know.
got his blessing taken.
I don't blame him. Aside from that, he's down. I mean, he wants to get up. Doesn't everyone want to get up?
Yep.
If the only way I can get up is by dragging him down, well, then I guess that's what I have to do.
So Barry, listening to that when I was a little kid, that's the reason I get this anti-Semitism my whole
Yeah,
life.
he says, I want to get up. What do I got to do to get up? I got to drag the Jew down.
Yeah, okay.
Well, so it kind of sounds like that's the way it is. And this is the way the Torah sets it up. This is from a Jewish perspective. These guys are out for the Jews, and the only way they can get up is to drag Jews down. And, to tell you the truth, I'm a Jew, but I can kind of see it from Esau's point of view. I mean, he wants to get up. So I got to drag a Jew down? What's going on? Well, Rashi, that great Middle Ages commentator, died around the year 1100. So Rashi makes the following comment, and he elaborates on this. He says, what does that mean that when one brother goes down? He says that means to say, when Israel will transgress the Torah, that's when meaning when they're going to go down. How does Israel go down? When they transgress the Torah, then you will have an opening to regret or to feel pain over the blessings that he took. Then you will throw off his yoke.
Well, I guess if you look at history, that's probably pretty accurate, too.
So now it's interesting. Now we see another. So we see, according to the way this Rashi is saying it, the only time the anti-Semitism comes up is when Israel goes down. Meaning, it's not that the anti-Semite or the Asa drags down the Jew.
We get down on our own.
When the Jew drags himself down, then the anti-Semites jumping on him. But so now you'll say, oh, this is all blaming the victim thing.
Right.
But since I'm a victim, I think I have a right. If I want to blame the victim, I'm the victim.
Well, if you look at history, that's a good possibility.
In a Jewish-only club, they can blame the victim. If they're the victim, they can blame each other.
We're allowed to call each other Jews in the Jewish-only club.
Right.
We're allowed to use the J word.
Right.
Okay.
But I think actually the Maharal from Prague, city of Prague, capital of Czechoslovakia. So there was a rabbi there. Then the Maharal, that's his acronym, Rabbi Lowy. And Rabbi Lowy was a great rabbi around the year 1500 in the city of Prague. And he wrote a number of Torah commentaries. And one of his commentaries is he explains what Rashi, who died in 1100, he explains what he meant. So it's a commentary on a commentary.
Right.
Okay? So you got the Maharal, Rabbi Lowy's commentary on Rashi's commentary on the Torah. Remember, Rashi's commentary is that when they stop observing the Torah and they drag themselves down, that's when this is the exact words he says, then you will have the right to regret the fact that he took the blessings. And then you'll throw him off. What does that mean, you'll have the right to regret he threw the blessings? So the Maharal says a very fundamental truth of human nature. It applies to Jews and non-Jews, philo-Semites, anti-Semites, black people, white people, old people, young people, you name it, right? Well, men, women, you got it. Here's the deal. If I see your success, I am not jealous of your success if you're good. I'm never jealous of success of people who are good. That means either A, you did something really good. Like let's say you wrote a really, really great book.
Right.
And it sells a ton of copies, it's really good. I'm not jealous of you for writing a great book. Okay?
Right.
And let's say you're a really, really good person and you find success for whatever reason. Maybe you wrote an okay book, but it was very successful. If you're a really, really good person,
You think there's less?
I'm not jealous of you because, you're a good guy, right? You know when I'm jealous? When I'm jealous is when someone's bad and yet they achieve good. When you are bad and you achieve success, I hate that. I can't stand that.
Or could it be perceived that they're bad?
Perceived bad.
Right.
Perceived bad, but you're achieving success. I can't stand that. If you're successful because I know your brother-in-law happened to put in a good word with the this guy, or if you're successful because some money exchanged hands under the table, or if you're just a rotten person, and I happen to know you're a rotten person, and you write this phenomenal book and it's selling like crazy, but I know you're really rotten. You come home, you kick the cat, and you just you're mean to everybody. I can't stand that. I just can't stand that. I don't begrudge you your success if you're a good guy, but if you're a bad guy, I hate it. So it says this is the deal with Esau. Esau can put up with the Jews and their success, even if it means denying him something, if the Jews are good. Because if they're good and they're being successful, even Esau can deal with it. But you know what he can't stand? If the Jews are bad, and yet they're receiving good and they're riding high. He says, I can't stand it. How could he get those blessings? If he got those blessings because he really, really deserved it, Esau knows. He is a lowly guy. He's a cheat, and he's a philanderer, and he is a murderer, and all this bad stuff. So the fact that he didn't get the blessings, they go to Jacob. Jacob's a nice guy, a good guy. I can understand that. But if Jacob's not being a good guy, why should he get the blessings any more than me? If he's a cheater, if he's trying to steal from other people, well, why should he have the blessings? For that money, I could have the blessings. That's when I hate him.
I understand that point, but then you get some difficult things to explain, like the Holocaust or Israel today. Were the Jews that bad? I mean, yeah, some Jews were not observing Torah that well in the early 1900s, but is that why Esau rose up to take down the Jews, because they were bad?
Well, nowadays is interesting. I probably would not have said this 20 years ago. I certainly wouldn't have said it 20 years ago. Because at the time, there were people around, Holocaust survivors, who suffered, and they suffered greatly. So certainly we weren't going to look at the shortcomings of the people that perished.
Right. No, I
because
understand.
Even the shortcomings, anyone who perished, who's going to be so pompous as to say, well, they perished because they did this wrong or they did that wrong. And aside from that, there were other people that survived who were really upset, because many people who survived said, listen, I was a bad guy, and yet my brother, who was a good guy, he died and I lived.
Right.
So it's really nasty thing to get involved, like pointing fingers. However, with the passage of time, I do think that we can step back and we can make some generalized statements. And we can say that the Jews were not living the pristine life either between them and God, and even between them and their fellow man, that they should have been.
Well, maybe more so the Jews in Western Europe, in Germany and places like that, probably were not, but the Jews in parts of Eastern Europe were pretty much, they were Orthodox Jews. They were living, the way they've been living for thousands of years.
I'm not sure that was really the case.
It might not have been.
I'm not really sure that was the case. Although, you and I were never there.
Right.
But I think that we somewhat mythologize the facts. And, I saw a video taken from before the Second World War, the city of Vilna. And Vilna was like a great center of Jewish scholarship and all that. And it showed a picture of the river. It was like a little sort of movie about like what Jewish life is like in Vilna, circa 1937. And they said on Saturday the Jews like to go down to the river, and they showed like all the Jews down at the river bathing and basically having a good time at the beach, and looked really nice and wholesome. But it didn't look very Jewish.
This must have been the Jewish Film Festival.
Something like that. And then they showed and in the Jewish and in the Jewish neighborhood, the pious Jews, and a lot of them, like the old Jews and stuff like that, are still they go in the synagogue. I don't know. First of all, I don't know about piety, and even more so, I don't know about how people were acting vis-a-vis their relations with their Jewish as well as non-Jewish neighbors. If people were conducting themselves on a high moral standard vis-a-vis other Jews and vis-a-vis non-Jews. I don't know, so I'm not sure, but it seemed to me that the Jews had gotten off their game. And when they get off their game, then, and they're not being good, then the nations of the world then they say, hey, wait a second. If you're acting like Jews, like you're supposed to, then I agree, you deserve the blessings. But if you're not really acting the way you're supposed to, why should you have the blessings any more than me? I'm angry, give me that blessing. And then they reach out and they snatch it away.
I mean, I got you, and it makes sense biblically. I would have always said it's the opposite. When they say the Jews acting piously and acting that way, like that's what I would have thought with the creation of the state of Israel. Here the Jews are coming back to the Holy Land, they're praying into the temple, they're doing, at the wall, they're doing all this. Now's the time of who these Jews think they're better than us. I mean, what are they? But I mean, but I could be wrong. It could be because they aren't better than us. I mean, I don't know. We're going here.
I have, in my own personal experience, noticed that when a person, let's say myself, I walk in, I'm wearing the kippah, and I'm wearing the tzitzis, the beard, and all that stuff, so looking obviously Jewish. If I am acting obviously Jewish, people don't give me a hard time. But when I'm looking Jewish, and I try to get a deal, or maybe pull a swift one, or something like that, man, people are all over it. They hate it. Like the judge throws the book at you for that. Because they can't stand the pious guy. Like, who are you that you're so pious? And we have seen this. We have seen this where there are certain pious Jews, rabbis, that are rotting away in prison right now. Right. Even though the crimes that they committed by general standards are not all that horrific. However, the judge threw the book at him. Why? Because when you stand up in front of the judge with the beard and the yarmulke and everything, the judge can't stand the fact that you're so pious, yet you acted like this, and they really slam him. That, I believe, is Esau saying, and perhaps rightfully so, Esau saying, I hate you because you're not being a light unto the nations. So if we transfer that over to Israel, there's a huge, huge internal conflict in Israel right now. There are many people that are promoting Israel is a secular state, and we want to give all the rights to all the peoples, and all the secular modern ideas, and they're cutting edge, on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of, if you look around at literature and what masquerades as art and popular culture, a lot of it comes from the Jews. And a lot of people look at the Jews and they go, man, they are ripping down the moral fiber of this world. Now there's this other Israel that's trying to be really, really holy. But Israel itself has got this huge tug-of-war going on. And I think that internally, it's that image that Israel's projecting to the world, that they want to be this, secular, liberal engine,
right,
that the world is really, really hating. I don't think that the world hates as much. As my opinion, I do not believe that the world looks at all those Orthodox Jews walking around and says, we hate them, we hate them, we hate them. I think what the world is doing, if you ask, Mr. Hamas bomber,
right,
I think what he hates is that secular Israel.
And it could be true. Now, speaking of the Mr. Hamas bomber, though, is it likely? Is it supposed to happen when Ishmael is going to hang out with Esau there and they're going to join together? What's going on with? I mean, that's one thing I don't understand. I get where you're coming from, but is Esau supposed to be teaming up with Ishmael when he sees that we're doing bad?
I think that there is within Ishmael there is an Esau component. There's Ishmael, and then there's the Esau component within Ishmael. It gets a little complex as we get down to the end of the story. It gets most complex near the end of the story, right, and then there's the resolution.
And you figure it out.
It starts off simple, then it gets really complex, and then all of a sudden, like in the last act, everything gets tied up and it gets real simple again. So we're right before everything gets tied up and it gets simple again. So we're in the complex stage. So I don't want to really call it, is it Ishmael, is it Esau? I don't want to really point fingers.
Right.
I do see in general, there seems to be a worldwide anti-Semitism. You know, why are people marching in Paris over what's going on in the West Bank? Does it really, really affect them? The answer is it seems to really, really bother them. And I believe that what's underneath it is that Esau is saying, I'll give you the blessing. I will forego the blessing. You deserve it. But you better act like you deserve it. And if you stop acting like you deserve it, I want that blessing back. I'm not going to put up with it.
You're giving Esau a lot of credit.
Yeah,
You're making him like the mature big guy here. You know?
Yeah, and I'm blaming the victim. But like I said, I'm the victim, so I can blame him.
I guess. I mean, I'm not going to 100% give in on this, but I think you're partly right. I think that the only thing I would disagree with is I think that it might be a lot more perception on Esau's part. I don't think he's being so noble to say, hey, as long as you're good, you're good. I think he's looking continuously to see if he can find one little element of bad there with Jacob.
It's a knee-jerk reaction. I don't know if they go through all the mental stages that I outlined.
Right.
But it's visceral. It's visceral. Like I believe I can put up with him when he's acting this way. But as soon as he starts acting that way, I just can't put up with the guy. You know? And this is why. What's the knock on Jews? What is the knock on Jews? Is the knock on Jews really that they worship differently, that they have their synagogues, is the knock on Jews that they eat matzahs? No, the knock on Jews is they kill Christian boys to eat matzahs. The knock on Jews is, shake their hand, but you better count your fingers afterwards.
Right.
Right. The knock on Jews. They loved that George Washington. They never turned loose of him. That's the knock on Jews, is that they cheat, and that's the part that people can't stand, and that's the part that really, really ticks them off. They're not knocking on Jews because Jews put mezuzahs on their doors or wear tefillin on their head or take off Yom Kippur. That's not what bothers them. What bothers them is if they're cheats and they're money grubbers and they're really like super ambitious and want to amass huge amounts of money and live ostentatiously. And my father-in-law, who's a Holocaust survivor, when I talked to him about it, I said, how come they hated us so much? See, he said there were wealthy Jews who lived very ostentatiously. And he said they shouldn't have lived that ostentatiously because they elicited the jealousy. I believe if they were living as good people, I think that maybe, I'm speculating, that there was a second element. Aside from their ostentatious living, they weren't really being good people. They weren't being generous. They weren't being, they weren't helping out others. And that's what turned people on him, I would think.
It could be. I think maybe you might have to mix a little bit in there that a lot of this is perceived, and a lot of it, you put the Jews on a higher pedestal than you're putting everybody else. I mean, you're putting Jacob up here. And I think with that, I'm sure there was a lot of Poles that were living ostentatiously as well.
I'm a big pedestal guy.
You're a pedestal guy.
I'm a pedestal guy, yeah.
I'm just thinking that maybe
I put everyone up on pedestals. Jews up on pedestals, women up on pedestals. I put everybody on pedestals. Yeah, I like pedestals.
That's a good thing to figure. As a rabbi, that's good to put everybody on pedestals. I just think that maybe a lot of this is there's not much the Jews can do right. I think, so you're right. They probably were living ostentatiously. So was the Czechoslovakian guy next door as well. But the Jew we're going to go after. Listen, I mean, things aren't going too well in Uganda, but we're going after Israel. And I'm with you. So I think you're right. But I think people are putting a little bit more, expecting a lot more from Jews than anyone else. And I think they'll turn a lot quicker on Jews.
But I'm a big fan of expecting more from Jews because according to the way I'm saying it, yeah, the Jews, if they expect the blessing that they have, and the Jews, by the way, I don't believe are really smarter than everyone else.
Oh.
I don't really think so.
No.
I don't think so. I think the Jews have a blessing that God gives them a lot of success because the Jews have met with tremendous success. But you got to live up to that. If you're going to observe, if you're going to inherit and enjoy that blessing, you have to live up to it in your personal conduct as to show that you're someone that deserves that blessing, and the world will just not put up with it unless you are really living up to your own blessing.
So Rabbi Friedman says, just to make it simple here, Jews, You got it all right in front of you here. You don't blow it. Don't go out here. And he is putting you up on a pedestal. No doubt about it.
That's right.
We've got to act better. We've got to be better than those. We have to do more good. We have to give more charity. And we've got to, show that we're Jews.
That's right.
If not, the rest of the world's going to knock us right back into that spot.
And I do think, this, I'm going to lose Jeff now for sure. Okay, I do think that actually this is where the liberal Jews were going. This is where liberal Jews were going, because how the liberal Jews are totally dedicated to social action and social welfare and all this type of stuff. I think that what they're trying to do is bend over backwards to try to show the rest of the world that we really care about you and really good about you.
No, I agree with that. I agree they are trying to show that. Whether they're doing it or not is a different story.
So, and there they're getting, I think the reason that they get nailed on that one is because they're doing it, but at the same time they're trying to not be Jews. In other words, you got to act like a Jew and be socially conscious and aware. And what they're doing is that they're leaving the Jewish part. They got the social conscious and awareness part, but they've abandoned the Jewish part.
I agree with you there. Okay, we can agree. We can agree on this. Peace.
I knew we could work it out.
Peace in the middle Atlanta.
Yeah.
That worked. All right, good. That was actually a very interesting and unique argument in anti-Semitism because, it takes a different perspective. Rabbi Friedman expects a little bit more of you people here. I just want you to know that right now. Next week, we'll be back with another great episode. See you then.